smaller vases, you make bigger ones, cookie jars, whatever you want to make. But the basic technique for making the project, putting it together, is exactly the same. And I will say, to be quite honest, this is the best way to do it. I've never seen anybody that came close, just because I made every mistake doing that. And my kids, God bless them, Mr. B, why don't we try this? Boy, I should have thought of that 20 years ago. So I'm always open to suggestions, and thankfully my students have been very helpful in that regard. The slab is a little thinner than I normally would roll it out, but it'll be fine for tonight. Okay, in books they always talk about newspaper. No, don't use newspaper, use wax paper. Yes, that's one of the keys, because if, let's say you want to work on it the next day, that newspaper is going to get saturated, and that too is not going to want to come out very easily. Yeah. And this is going to sound strange, don't use store brand wax paper. It's not as good as Cut-Rite. So I tried to save money, and it was terrible.
There's a reason for the price being lower. So is the quality.
Okay, it's important to get whatever edge is going to be the bottom, it's got to be flush. I'll show you what I mean. Okay.
It's all right, it's fine.
So you want to pull this as tight as you can so that you can't pinch it. All right? And I don't care about this, but this has to be flush. A little masking tape. Any kind of tape works. And there you go. So you can see why. Much better than newspaper. Okay, I got way too much clay. Excuse me. But this is going to be my bottom. So as long as it's big enough, I set this aside, and I'm going to make the cylinder first. Now it's easiest with a cylinder to start off with a rectangle and use the table. I've got plenty of clay here. That's fine. Here's the bottom.
I like that.
Is it 1/4 inch thick?
Yeah. This slab roller is pretty accurate. It's about 5/16. That's what I set it on. And I don't care about the top. If this is really strange, I tend to cut it just because it helps me visually. Right. Now, any marks you put on the outside of this, you got to get out later. So be gentle with it. I'm going to roll it, keeping the bottom flush. If you have any questions, please ask. Nobody ever does, but I always have to say that.
Where did you get the tube? Where did you get the tube?
Home Depot. Kind of about.
We have a little cabinet full of tubes.
Yeah, I
Different sizes.
yeah.
Oh, that is nice.
This is a 3-inch. Okay, here's the key. One of the keys. You have to have enough for an overlap. With me? Okay. This is I'm dating myself. But in the 70s and 80s, when we hung wallpaper in our houses, one of the tricks for getting a perfect seam is you overlap it and then you cut it. Not that my seams ever came out that damn anyway. Okay, another thing that people do wrong, and I did wrong until one of my students suggested otherwise, is for years I cut it straight down. Well, it's better if you cut it at an angle, because you're now creating more surface area for that joint to bond. Normally I would do it like this, but you won't be able to see that, so I'll just do it right here. So I angle it, and the angle really doesn't make a lot of difference. The greater the angle, the more surface area. I'm going to cut through everything.
Does it matter which direction the angle goes?
You know what? It doesn't, theoretically. But I found from being right-handed, almost everybody angles it this way.
Oh, okay, yeah. 'Cause
Almost everybody
easier.
who's right-handed.
Yeah. So this comes off, yeah, gently. I'm going to peel this back and pull this one out. Now, sometimes it goes together perfectly and sometimes it doesn't. In this particular case, I got lucky. Seriously, sometimes it's too big. And so you just have to arbitrarily cut a little bit off. But because it's clay, you can sort of mush it and mash it and make it pretty. So again, I apologize. I had 4 weeks off for my last class, and I did a lot of talking today, and my throat's a little rough. Now you see how nice that seam went together because of that angle thing. And no slip, no scoring, no nothing.
Wow.
Don't need it. Yeah.
The clay's wet enough, you don't need to.
Yeah, with wet clay, you don't have to. Now be careful, because even setting it down like this, I've created a little mini flat spot that I have to deal with. It's not a problem, but be aware if you're really pushing on this thing, you're gonna have to you'll make it worse. This seam is actually really good. I got lucky. But so now I'm gonna take my credit card, and it's gone. Starbucks gift card.
All right.
If anybody wants one, I got 5,000 of them.
They did a lot of Starbucks gifts, huh?
I really do have about 5,000. I've got 2 shoe
Donate
boxes.
them to our garage sale.
White elephants in
What I
empty
did is
Starbucks
I
card.
made arrangements with a local Starbucks. Instead of they throw these away, but after Christmas, I said just throw them in a box for me. And they did, and I have enough till I'm 142. Okay, I'm going to put this down. Normally I would not do this, but otherwise you won't be
We
able to
have a cushion if you'd like to.
No, that's fine. All right, bottom. Again, no scoring, no slipping, no nothing. Now I'm going to cut out the bottom. Excuse me. When you cut it out, you want to cut it out too big, but not a lot too big. Because if I cut it out like this, that means I got to deal with all that clay. And one of the things that students do wrong is that they're focusing on the cutting, but they're not aware of the angle of this. So what they will do is they'll angle it like this, and they take it off, and there's no bottom. So just be careful. It does not have to be pretty. For whatever reason, I find a needle tool works better than a fettling knife. It's easier to control the angle. But where are you? I'm going to use this stuff for handles. You have to be careful wherever you're working, but especially on anything, that whatever you're working on doesn't get wet. Because I've had students leave it here, and they smooth it and get it on, and they pick it up, and it sticks to the table. The bottom does.
Right.
Here we go.
So you don't work on canvas.
Yeah, but I move it anyway. So you can take a wooden tool and just do this. Now you have to admit, so far this is not difficult. It's not complicated.
Brain surgery? No.
Be aggressive with this. Okay. Now for 35 years, I took this excess off in a different way, and it was such a struggle with my students. And I finally gave in, and I came up with another way to do it. Tongue depressor, scissors.
Not good for the scissors.
Here's my tool. All I have to do is put it against the base and rotate it. And what's going to happen is I'll scrape it off until I can't scrape any more off, and it's going to be fine. You don't have to get greedy with this. You don't have to do it quickly. Take your time. I want you to notice that my cylinder is pretty clean, not because I was careful. That means it's just easier to smooth it out in the end. Most of my students don't do this enough, which is fine, but at the very bottom of the vase they have a little excess. That could be decorative if you wanted to.
So there's a tool that comes in our kits that is wooden, and it would stand.
The trouble with that tool is it's got a point on it, and that point will dig into the top part. That's why this is better. But I mean, you're right. That thing would work just fine as long as you're careful.
And why not the credit card for this?
I'm going to do the credit card in just a second. I'd be lost without Starbucks credit card. No, seriously, that's how I throw. That's how I shape. Okay. Apparently, I can't talk and chew gum at the same time because I'm going to call that done just for the sake of time. So let me show you a couple other things not to do. These are mistakes that I've made throughout my career. Incorrectly said, well, let's just roll it like this to get it smooth.
Yeah.
Well, this is a rolling pin, kids. So you can't do that. So you take your credit card, and the trick for doing this is you get it curved and you hold it really flat. And watch, if I don't have it flat enough, watch what happens. I'm putting lines in it. They're there. But if I flatten it out, you can see the difference immediately. So it's almost flat, and I can push really hard. And you're basically what they call burnishing the clay.
I've heard that word before. In fact, you didn't do that with the credit card in the very beginning on the.
Yeah, this is just easier.
Yep.
And again, I made it easy on myself because I don't have any holes to fix. But I got a hole. God, I hate it when that happens.
Magic.
Yep. They tried a lot.
No sharp edges. So I want to really make sure that that bottom is nice. Okay, so that's me. The top has to be straight. Angle, wavy, whatever floats your boat. I'm going to do it, excuse me, straight just for the sake of argument.
Would you like to have some Tit Tat?
No, this is fine. What's interesting is I had to do this for every student because they could not figure this out. And it's just practice. You know, after you've done the first 3,000 or 4,000, it's easier. When you cut this off, I mean, these are little things, but they make a difference. With a fettling knife, but you want to, you want to cut it off at an angle. So I want the knife to be angled like this, not like that.
Right.
It's easier to control that straight line. It's a little thing, but you go like this and you end up wiggling.
Wait, so how do you do it? We couldn't all see.
So I'm going to cut it like that,
It's horizontal. Yeah, we can't really see.
as opposed to this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just on an angle.
This.
Instead of straight on.
I'm sorry, this is a little thing, but
Use a needle tool from the line.
Like when you do with the needle tool, so you don't
Yeah.
get.
when I left the house, I thought I don't need an apron.
I would offer you my other one, which is sitting over there, but I think it's too late.
Yeah, well, this is my second class in these clothes, so I think I can wash them. What did I miss?
What did you do? Hold your arm down?
Yeah, I cheat. For those of you that haven't had my throwing demonstration, I cheat every chance I get. So to draw the line, my elbow's here, and I'm bracing that hand. My hands just are not that steady anymore.
Join the crowd.
It wasn't perfect, but you get the idea. Okay. Let's take this thing out. And again, there are some students, they're focusing on the minutia. They don't see the forest. So they say, Mr. B, it won't come out. Well, it won't because the wax paper is stuck to the clay. That's the point. And if it gets stuck, if it's really stuck, what you can do is you can have somebody hold on to this part, and you grab this end and you twist it as you pull out. What you can't do is you can't leave it like this without a bag overnight, because this is going to shrink, and when it shrinks, when it dries, it's going to shrink, and you come back and there's a big crack. This should just slide right out.
Yeah.
There's a little piece of wax paper in there. I wouldn't mess with it because it'll just burn off. Now I do have a problem, and this is one thing that sometimes people forget to do. These will crack big time if you don't deal with that inside seam. You see it?
Yeah.
Even though my seam went together pretty good, they're never that good. Got it? So, if they're gonna crack, they tend to crack from the top down. So if you don't have one of these tools, you can't reach all the way down, don't worry about it. But what I do is I go in the direction that I cut that joint in, and I just sort of work that seam down as far as I can. Now, if it's real, let's say you just do a really bad job. You have a huge gap there. What you can do is you can take a really tiny coil, put it in there, and then blend it both ways. It's fine.
So you don't have to put a coil?
No.
You don't do that to the bottom.
What about the
No.
bottom? Yeah.
No.
Because the clay is fresh and it's wet.
Yeah, I know it's counterintuitive because I didn't put a coil down there, and there's really not a whole lot of clay holding this on. I've done thousands and thousands of these, and maybe I've had 3 or 4 cracks. So yeah, this works just fine. It's also a lot easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when you get down in there.
Yeah, you can't get that bottom seam. Options for this, I could cut it, I can draw on it. Now, if you want to do some drawing on it, some carving, wait till it's leather hard, please, because it's just too hard to do it like this. Another thing, as long as it's called bird walking in teacher parlance. Let's say you're drawing on this with something, okay? You see all those little goobers hanging on there? Forget about them. Don't touch them. Even if this is leather hard, forget about it. When it's dry, you get a little thing, a piece of green scrubby, even your fingers, and just rub it, and all those flake off. You know the green scrubby pads for like washing dishes and stuff? Yeah, anything like that. But if you mess with them now, they go back into the groove. We good?
Good.
Questions? Okay. I'm sorry, but this is not like a throwing demo where I can spend 2.5 hours just talking, but this is something that a lot of you probably haven't seen, and I thought it'd be fun for you to watch. So here we go. I'm making the cylinder exactly the same. Years ago, there was a book, a great book, it's been out of print for decades, called Decorating Pottery. And as I've repeated many times in my demonstrations, I'm a truly horrible artist. I mean, wow, stick figures are a challenge. So my challenge has been, if you will, how do I make my work look nice? I remember seeing a picture in this book of these carved out wooden blocks with these gorgeous geometric patterns. But this was like in the 80s, and so who knew? About 5 or 6 years ago, eBay. Holy shit. So I discovered these, and I spent a lot of money. They only cost $15, but it's $50 to ship them. And I got into bidding wars, and I just went berserk. And I don't use them much anymore, but for a time they were great fun. What these are made to put patterns on muslin. And if you can find the YouTube video, it's fascinating. They've got the paint and the cloth on a big table, and they go boom, 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 boom. It's just like a machine, and the pattern just explodes. It's so cool. Well, we're not going to use muslin.
Where are they from, Bill?
India,
India.
I think. Not packed. I don't
What are
think.
they called?
Wooden fabric, wooden textile blocks.
It's for
I've even seen these as they didn't know what they were, but I've seen 2 restaurants had these on display. And I asked if they knew what they were. They had no idea.
They also did
When I was in India, the woman with us was going to every spot and she was looking for
Yeah,
these.
and these are all antique. They could be really old. The new ones they're not any good.
What you got there?
To do wallpaper the same way.
Yeah,
Oh, did really?
So you can look
Wallpaper.
for wallpaper blocks as well.
Be so cool.
Cornstarch.
And you have to use this
Cornstarch.
because otherwise they stick like crazy. Don't worry about using too much cornstarch. It's not going to hurt you.
But you cannot reuse that clay. Could you, after the cornstarch, could you use it again?
Say again?
With the cornstarch, are you able to use the clay again if there is a leftover?
You know what? In other words, the scraps of this, I'm going to throw away. I don't know if it would hurt anything, but I don't want to find out. And we're not talking about a lot of clay. Now, what I like to do, I should have made a taller slab. I apologize for that. Is normally I like to leave at least 1.5 inches or 2 inches from the bottom for 2 reasons. Number one, if I have a non-textured strip above and below, it acts like a frame, sort of. And also, if I texture to the bottom, how am I going to clean it up when I put the bottom on?
Yeah.
Now, this is true. I was going to do a different kind of texture, but I thought this would be more fun. But like I brought in some plastic patterns for you guys to use. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but they're really cool. But with any kind of texture that you're going to roll on, you better spend some time rolling it, because you think it's in there and you pick it up and it ain't. So when you're done, stop, get a drink of water, come back and do that. I mean, seriously, spend 10 minutes. Because if you do it right, it's killer looking. I love textures like that. I've got a beautiful plastic, they're placemats, but it's a leaf pattern. It's perfect. Anyway. So, with this, you have to sneak up on it. I mean, by the way, when you have 8 or 10 people doing this, it's just slightly annoying. But you notice I'm not going to work on it to try and hit it hard. I'm just trying to get it down there. Now the lovely thing about these is you can pick it up, and if you don't like it, you can put it back. That's not bad.
Nope,
That's not bad.
Not bad at all.
I picked this one because it's really dramatic.
Yes.
Okay, these are made to go together, to connect.
Oh. Look at that.
Actually, I created them. They never believe me.
No.
Not after you told us what a lousy artist you are.
Yeah, well,
Too much
you
information.
know, Pat, you don't have to remind me what I said.
I didn't say that, Fritzy did.
Okay, now I don't want to go deeper than this.
No.
So I gonna, yeah, I need to go more in this.
Yeah.
You can see the difference? But I can always go deeper, but if I hit it too hard,
How do you put it back? Oh, I
Easy. It just drops right into back into the right spot.
yeah, it's easier to put back.
Nice.
That's nice. Okay, now, I did this for a reason. So what I found is if I don't put this here, when I do this part,
It'll tip. Yeah.
right? So this is probably long enough, but I thought I'd show you that. So we go like this. Here we go. Cool.
Yep.
So now we're back to basics. Nothing changes. And I'm not going to destroy this one. I think Pat might be unhappy with me if I did that.
Turn that around, the cornstarch, so I can get a picture. Because I didn't bring paper and pencils. Yeah. Yeah.
As I said, I've got plenty of slab here. And I will tell you from experience, if you glaze these in one glaze only, don't use two with a pattern like this. Anything that's textured, keep it simple, stupid. It just looks better. Because your eyes will always go to color over texture. And so anyway. What, like a celadon, a good Timoku, anything that's going to change color as it goes into the crevices, it just looks unbelievably good. Make sure everything's tight. Sometimes my students would get, they allow the cylinder to get loose and they lose it almost immediately. Okay, I'm going to do this vertically because I don't want to mess up that texture. Now, unfortunately, obviously you can't use a credit card to smooth it out. I do have a couple of tricks. Just a tiny bit of water. And what's interesting about this is you would think, oh, the seam's going to really show. Once it's glazed, I mean, if you hunt for it, you'll find it, but people just don't notice it. Trust me. I came up with a very difficult way of doing everything you've seen, but then I put it on the wheel and I make a mug out of it. Really hard, but nobody ever, the seams were almost invisible. So, okay, so here we go. It's obviously there, okay? But when you glaze it, you're just not going to see it. I think I'm going to clean that up a tiny bit. To go back to your cornstarch question, I don't know if it would cause a problem, but I'm going to clean it up around the bottom just in case, you know. Of all the demos I've done, This is, look at this. This is SRO. Who knew?
What's SRO?
Standing room only. Standing room only. So, while I'm doing this, I've always been a huge Eagles fan in terms of music. And when I was 46, which was, I don't know, 92 years ago.
Or last Thursday.
Somebody just had a birthday last week. He's not happy. So I had been to a concert since high school or since college. So I asked my students, okay, kids, how do I get in? Oh, you jump the fence here. There's a gap in the gate there. And it was a really great discussion. Go to Ticketmaster in Arizona on the internet. I mean, they came. It was creative, but obviously I was going to decline. And one of my students, I don't remember her name because it was a long time ago, but she said, "Mr. B, you want to go to the Eagles concert?" I said, "Yeah." Well, my dad owns Irvine Meadows, and I've been twice, so I'll give you my tickets. 10th row center. We were the only one that didn't have backstage passes.
I bet she got named.
So it was great. I mean, it was one of my truly great experiences of my life.
It's just further proof of it isn't what you know, but who you know. It's always who you know.
Okay. I'm sorry that this is repetitious, but I don't know unless I can throw this away now. Does it make sense to all of you that if I cut it out really big, I've got a lot of clay that I've got to deal with? Yeah.
What are you using for clay, sir? What are you using for clay?
This is, it's not my favorite clay, but I always use B-mix with sand just because I'm used to it. I prefer white. I used to always throw an iron-bearing clay because it was like the 70s and 80s. You had to have earth tones and rust brown, and now I went to buy some porcelain at Aardvark. It was $40 a bag. It used to be $15. Okay. Now, obviously, with the texture, I have to be a little careful. In fact, it's harder in my hand, but easier on the texture.
And you're just I can't see it, but you're just holding that.
I'm just doing this.
Yeah.
Okay. There is, with any texture, it can create glazing problems insofar as if it's like the placemat thing that I mentioned, and Pat knows where they are, it's a shallow groove, so you just dunk it. But this you have to spray. You cannot dunk this. Because trust me on this. This is a lesson I learned really the hard way. Because when you dunk it, these grooves are so deep. And it's even worse if I have some beautiful textures that are pretty tight, really intricate. The glaze just does not get in there. It can't penetrate that little hole. So I sprayed all of these.
Oh, spray.
Okay, almost done. I left at a really good time. I taught at University High School. I taught, what else? I taught art for one horrible semester. I also was a math teacher for Algebra 1 and basic math. And my budget when I left was about $7,000 a year, and the kids paid for clay. And it was great. If I needed wax paper, I'd go buy 10 rolls. They cut the budget the year after I left to $500.
Wow.
So. Every day since 2008, every day I miss it. I don't miss all the bullshit that goes with it, but I miss the kids.
Yeah.
They were so fun. Think about a ceramics class. How bad are they going to be? What's the worst thing I can do to them? You can't play with clay today. Ah!
Stick it to the ceiling.
Oh, yeah. When I had a substitute, I would always get pencils in the ceiling. But they knew. I was like, well, the word is benevolent despot. That's exactly what I was. I was a real hard ass if they crossed me. So, and they knew that. What I would do, this sounds really contrived, but what I would do after about the first 2 weeks of class, I would have pre-made some pots, they're decent size, and let them get dry. I get mad and I throw one across the room and crash it on the wall. This guy's nuts. I better be good. Okay, there is one thing you can do, and this particular pattern, it's not going to make a huge difference, but you can do this if you want to. Sometimes on a cylinder like this, I'll show you. So what you can do is you can roll this. Now you can't roll it almost like up and back, but it'll flatten out the design and make it a little more even. And sometimes that looks really good. Like I said, it's not going to change this very much. But it absolutely flattened that top part. It's just a little more uniform now. So it has a little less of a poochy look.
Yeah.
Is that a ceramics term, poochy?
Coochie.
What will you do with the top, because it's cracking?
I'm going to cut that off anyway. Make the mark with a needle tool, not with a knife. It's easier. This angled knife thing when you're cutting a top is really important. No sharp edges. Be careful, sometimes this could stick to this if it's on there too long. It's not a big deal, but it does happen. You see how easy that comes out?
Yeah.
So you're not concerned about that bottom that doesn't have any marking on it? That's, you know.
No, that's a border. They wanted it that way.
I didn't do a good job, my bad, but I should have made a bigger slab, taller, so that this and this naked part were the same. But, you know, sue me.
Got money?
Okay, now because I couldn't compress it as much with a credit card, you're going to find that this seam is a little worse. And so I'm going to have to be a little, I'll show you. It's not terrible. I don't need a coil.
Oh, doesn't look terrible.
No, it's not. It's just worse than the other one.
What's the verdict, doctor? Oh, that's the verdict.
What's the matter?
I hate you guys. Okay, needs a coil. So what I do, I'll take the handle of my needle tool and I'll push into that seam and make like a little groove to accept the coil. It's just easier. Like that.
Did it separate, Bill?
Can you show us
Did it
that?
separate?
Well, I don't know if you can even see the groove. But you see, I smushed the gap together, and then I'm going to put a coil in there, so it's not going to split. Can you see?
Yeah.
I can tell.
Does that make sense?
And you're gonna do on partial?
I'm going to put a coil in there. We're going to get into coil rolling tonight.
What did you see that determined for you that it needed a coil?
Yeah, what's
Separated.
separated?
What? I'm sorry.
Separated, is that
Why do you need the coil?
Well, because even though I smushed that seam, it was a big enough gap. I don't know that there might be some airspace in there. It may not have blended totally. So I'm just going to reinforce it just a tiny bit.
Thank you. Right, and you look at twice. Look at twice. First he said it was okay. Yes, that's I figured all of you were translated.
I know this is probably not a great thing to say, but if it's a little bumpy in the inside and it's a vase, I don't care. I mean, nobody's going to go, oh, geez.
Especially if they're
Okay, good. You can just go online, go to eBay, wooden textile blocks. In fact, I would do just do textile blocks, see which ones you like. I really prefer the antique, the older ones. But they come in any size. I mean, I got a set of 12 that were that big. I've got round ones. I've got one triangle. What you can't do is you can't get these wet. What happened, this is so thin that when you get it wet, it starts to disintegrate.
Is it teak wood,
So
Bill?
I have a pattern that I had to throw away because somebody had used it without the cornstarch. And it was a really intricate design, and there's no way you can dig it out. And I got it wet.
Bill?
Yeah.
Is it teak wood?
It's not teak wood. It's an Indian hardwood specific to
It is
the
a hardwood, though.
subcontinent of India.
Okay.
Okay. I'm gonna smash it.
Quick, grab it before you. Yeah.
Good God. Okay. This is a really quick and easy way to make a mug. Nothing's going to change much, except because it's a mug, I want it to be thinner. Now, this is not a hard thing to do. Many of you may already do it, but it's a way of thinning out clay without going back to the slab roller. It's very traditional. I know some teachers, college teachers, they don't have a slab roller. They make their kids do it this way, but it's just easier if you get it started. I just go like this and bring it back. You just let it hit, and it starts to get longer and thinner. Now you notice, I knew I was going to make a mug out of this, right? So I didn't make a huge slab. I'm not going to waste much clay this way. That'll do. Okay, rinse and repeat. I will do this as quickly as I can because this really isn't about the mud. It's about the handle. I did a class here where everybody made the smooth one first day, and the next Tuesday, I brought a bunch of those in. It was fun. I don't know if they ever glazed it, but we did make them.
I expected it.
Make sure that the bottom is flush with the cylinder. Okay, this one's a little short, but it's clay, so I can stretch it, but you don't want to stretch it like this. You pick your hand and just pull it together like this. This was, my students had to make 2 of these, and they had to use different decorations on the 2. And a lot of my students, they would roll out a really thin slab, let it get leather hard, and they would carve out like dad or mom or whatever. It was fun.
So you can build like that when it's leather hard?
Yeah, they make the mug, take it out, let the mug get leather hard. Meanwhile, they've rolled out a slab, let that get leather hard, and it's just leather hard to leather hard. Then you have to score and slip.
Okay.
You can't do what it's wet. I have a student in my Thursday morning class, Deborah, she's a delight, but she throws a mug and then tries to put a wet handle on a wet mug. I keep telling her how to do it. She wants to do it her way, so. I got three new students today, and it's interesting how many of students, they come in on the wheel, they're throwers. I don't know who taught them, but man alive, I gotta go back and fix a bunch of stuff. I don't understand it. It's not brain surgery.
It's not?
Yeah, well. It's about as fast as I can do this.
So I think it imprints it in our brain by watching it again.
Repetition, right?
Right?
If you want to make mugs, but you really sincerely struggle with a handle, even after what I'm going to show you tonight, use the extruder. I did that for years. I made my own die, and I used the extruder. You do the thing, and you got 10 feet of handle. There's nothing wrong with that.
I don't think our extruder is.
Doesn't have a handle die?
Well, it's that our extruder takes so long to set up and to clean.
Oh, yeah.
It wouldn't be worth it.
I think that's a Bailey or a North Star.
That's a North Star.
Yeah, they're a pain in the ass. Brents aren't the best, but they're the easiest to clean. The first project that I had, I'm just talking as I'm working, but the first project that I had my students do was coil pots. Because it kept them busy for a while, and I mean, there's regular coil pots about this tall. It was a great first project. But if I'm doing a demo, 5 periods of making coil pots, I just said, no, I don't think so. So I set up the extruder, and they'd never seen an extruder. They didn't know what it was. And so I would say, well, before you ask, the answer is no. And then I would pull the handle. Oh, Mr. B.
Ben is,
You have the budget for that?
don't hold your breath. No, he's hoping to find it around here.
Oh, he thinks there might be one here.
He thinks there might
Ah, cool. Let's see, would it be in the woodworking shop? Would it be in the? Obviously not in here. It would be someplace ridiculous.
Probably took it home.
That's probable too.
Someone's garage.
Someone's garage.
We already got one of those with no parts.
Who extruded all of these?
It's just easier.
These are for our desktop project.
Yeah.
Our glaze project, yes.
Having done literally thousands of these, this for this particular cylinder, it holds a lot of coffee, a lot. So I think it was only 4¼ inches, 4½ inches, but this will probably closer to 4 3/4 or 5, but it's fine. The trouble when you make a big mug, especially if if I throw it, it's pretty thin, so weight's not going to be an issue. But at some point, if you make this really big mug and you're hand building it, and the handle isn't great and it weighs a ton, you're not going to want to use it. Okay, thank you for your patience. I knew that was going to stick. Come on, baby. Let's talk handle. Yeah. Unfortunately, like so much of life, making a handle requires that you make a lot of bad handles before you get to the good ones. It's like cooking, it's like swimming, it's like anything. Tennis, it's a skill, and you have to practice the skill. There's an old ceramic saying, it takes 100 pulled handles before you know how to do it. Mine was in the high 60s before I really understood it. So this is how I've been teaching this for a long time, and with a little bit of practice. All you have to practice is rolling a coil. That's all you have to do. And the rest of the handle just is really easy. I better push this. Okay, you start off by making just, and that's too big, and just roll a coil. Now, I can give it, I've done coil, I think 2 coil classes here. Rolling a coil takes practice. At first, you're not going to do it right, unless you're one of those rare people that just get it immediately. It took me a while. I don't know. I don't remember how long it took me, but with my handles, it's just a preference. I like to make sort of a rat tail. I mean, sort of a carrot tapered thing. And I get it straight, and then I use the heel of my hand, so that if you can do this, you can make a handle, and a good handle. Before I get to that.
You have a certain length you're looking at
Yeah.
for the handle?
That's a really good question, and what I like to do is I want it skinnier than I want here, and too fat over here, so I can figure out where in that cross section, where in that length I get a cross section that I like. Okay. I'm going to use the heel of my hand to flatten it out. Now, the question becomes, why can't I roll out a slab and cut a handle out of it? Slab. Because when you cut the handle out, you have these really hard edges. And you can rub those till the cows come home, and you're not going to get it smooth enough to be comfortable. You put your hand in that, it's like, I don't think so, all right? So make sure it's straight. If you do this, you're going to have a strange looking handle. Here we go. I don't have to beat the hell out of it. So to answer, I've got, like, it's too thick there. I've got a lot of clay to choose from. I'm going to roll this edge a little bit, try and straighten it out a tiny bit. I didn't do a great job rolling the coil, but it'll work. Take a damp sponge, give it a little smooth out. There's your handle.
Wow.
And you can see how round it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, it made it by hand, but it looks fine. This is not that
great.
hard.
Looks really good.
Now,
And a
you
lot
prefer that
easier.
to the other technique of pulling it down from a big block?
I know, I pull all my handles because it's quicker for me to pull it than it is to do this.
Oh,
And I can make, I've got a setup where I make 16 handles in a row and let them dry. It's just easier.
so why do you show us this then?
Because pulling
It's a
handles
heck of a lot easier.
pulling-
Yeah,
hey,
it's
who,
not easy.
who pulls their handles? Okay, is it easy?
Takes
No,
a
it's
while.
hard.
Oh, okay. So this is the easy way, huh?
This is the easy way. Well, I mean, the risk of being out there a tiny bit, am I gonna really show high school students you take this conical thing and you start pulling on? I mean, let's get real, kids. Mr. Bean, no! Ah, but what if you want to go above and beyond?
Better edit that part out.
Okay.
Yes.
Some of my advanced students, I would pull 2 or 3 to the sink and show them. And boy, I did not smile. I did not. But what if?
I'm just guessing it's about 7 or 8 inches. I mean, you know how big your handles are.
Yeah. So, you tell me whether this is a pulled handle or not.
Looks like it to me.
Hybrid.
Yeah. Nice.
I wasn't worried about snapping it off. I wasn't worried about the angle of my thumb as I came down. I already had the shape. I just had to refine it. Now, for this one, I would probably put it on a piece of plaster for a half an hour or something, just to dry it out a little bit. It's a little wet to attach, but even so if you do this and then do that little 5-6 pulls, you can't tell the difference. I've got plenty of handle here. Kind of like that. I don't mind the handle being thick where it attaches. When you pick it up, it gives you a sense of this is going to hold, and it's really not going to get in the way of your fingers, or it's not a lot of weight. So. Cut it off at an angle, and then my handle's going to go like that. Okay? Now, normally I wouldn't do it this way, but I think it'll be easier for you to see what I'm doing. Okay, here's my mug. Everybody okay? See what I'm doing? All right. I've got a few minutes. Handles. A brief synopsis. If the handle is too high, it's going to feel weird. Too low, weird. Middle, just right. The top loop of the handle cannot go past the top of the mug, because that means you can't turn it upside down in your cabinets. If the handle is too big, it's going to feel like it weighs a ton. If it's too small and you put your hot liquid in there, you're going to burn your knuckles. So, and this sounds silly, but these are all factors when you make a handle. And I don't care how good the mug is, you put a crappy handle on it, you're not going to like it. If it doesn't feel good, it's not going to happen. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start this. I know that as I attach this particular handle, it's going to climb a little bit. So I'm going to start this about there. This is a big mug, so I got plenty of room. Now, one of the weird things about handles, it sounds sort of silly, but it's surprisingly difficult to keep them straight.
Shut up.
And you could check it this way and it's straight, and you check it the other way and it's not straight. So these are things you have to be careful of. So I'm just going to take my finger and I just start working this clay into the mug. With my handles, and it's just my preference, excuse me, I want the handle to organically grow out of that mug. If there's a bump there, that's where your knuckles are going to hit it. See, this is already getting crooked.
With no slip.
And you could take anything round. But I'm always doing what I call working the curve. I'm always doing this to smooth it. So I always have a nice smooth shape for that handle. Now this is the part that's going to bear the weight. Forget this, top isn't doing anything. Frequently there'll be a crack at the top, don't even worry about it. As long as you do a good job with this part, you're fine.
Bill, all these slabs have been out for quite a while. You still don't need to slip and score at any point?
No. It's basically wet clay on wet clay. Now, maybe the reason I can get away with that is I spent a lot of time making this joint really strong. It's blended in now. It's not going anywhere. Okay, now the curve. I don't know, the letter C. I did a handle demonstration here a while ago. We picked a bunch of the mugs, and we picked, I don't know, 8 or 9, and only 2 or 3 felt, and everybody would feel them, and we all say, oh, what's wrong with that handle? It was great. He actually made this handle too small, but it needed to be a little bit wider. But so what I do now, so you can see that although I could make it better. I'm not a perfectionist. But now I can play with that handle. You know, how big do I want? So what I do is I'll establish, let's say that, and I'll put my fingers in there. And it's not bad. I think I can live with that. So that's going to be the beginning of my handle. Chuck? All right. So again, it's crooked. This handle really is way too small. Okay. So you never want the bottom of the handle. These are all these weird little things. If you go to the bottom of the handle goes to the bottom of the mug, if you're waxing and glazing that part, it's a pain. You have to go over that bump. So I like to cut it off, I don't know, 1/4 inch or so above. And this is something, it's not a big deal, but it's a way of making sure this attaches, and it's sort of, I don't know. My students enjoy this. So I take the butt end of a needle tool and push it in like that. And so now this is joined, basically. And I'll take a piece of clay. No, it's pretty wet. There you go. And make a little tiny cone. Sort of like that.
Ribbon.
Yep.
How cool.
It's, you know, it's a stupid little thing, but how easy was that? Right? Now, even at this point, I can play with this handle. I can pull this down a little bit. I don't want to do that. I can push it in. But you do want, okay, other than the handle being too skinny, this way, it needed to be wider. My fingers are more or less in the middle, yes? Okay? My fingers are parallel with the mug. You'd be amazed how many handles they go like this and come back, and so you're holding, like, trust me. I mean, I want you to examine some mugs that you have at home. Why do they work? What is it about that handle that makes you think you could duplicate? Because the mug is thinner, you do want to sort of pay attention when you pick it up.
Is it a bad idea?
Now, something you can do, I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing to do, but what you can do is you can sort of pull this rim out a little bit. Doesn't take much. But by having that slight outie, that's a good place. Your lip fits right in that little groove, and you know it's not. This certainly wasn't any harder to do. And also, an added bonus to doing that is now this lip is nice and smooth and round, and it's just going to be easier to drink out of. Any questions?
Nice. Question.
Yeah.
What about sandwich in the handle?
Okay. Oh, thank you. Now, I want more applause than that, but give me a second. Not yet. Not yet. Okay, thank you. That's a really good question. When you put the handle on, I give myself about a ½ inch of clearance between the wet handle and my knuckle, knowing that in the end I'll be okay. That's about a ½ inch. I think a ¼ inch. If it was any closer, I think you'd be pushing the envelope. Okay, now you can applaud.